podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Yeah.
Welcome everybody to the Ospreys Diary. Different host today. It would be me taking the reins from Zach. Zach seems to have come down with what he would define as shit-laditis. How are we doing, fellas? How are you doing, Grant, after your time in Parliament?
I think I've recovered now.
Yep. Brilliant. And Josh, how are you doing, mate? You good?
Yeah, good. Obviously happy to be in the presence of a newfound celebrity in Grant, but yeah, look forward to the board.
Oh, don't. I got so many requests for autographs. It was really hard to get my head on the train to get home even.
I've never seen a man stare holes in the back of somebody's head as much as Grant was in that Parliament Select Committee, I have to say. So shall we start with some news, because we've got quite a lot to cover. The news this week that James Fender has signed for Grenoble. What do you make of that, fellas?
I genuinely can't blame him. I think we've said this a couple of times. If there's players leaving Wales right now, he's a loss to the Ospreys because he's a fantastic player and his potential is huge. But if I was a young player right now, I can fully understand why they might well decide they want 2 years out of the mess that's going on and wait until things settle and then potentially come back. So I can't blame him at all for making the move. And it's a great move. It's a great move for him personally. The French have got a fantastic player, and it's another hole that Welsh rugby's got to fill. We're not exactly creating this environment that everyone wants to stay, are we?
Yeah, I think even from a rugby perspective, outside of all the mess that's going on, I think it would have been quite difficult to keep hold of him. I think he's at that stage in his career where he's too good to be sat on the bench or not necessarily first choice. And I do think our first choice this season probably has been Rhys Davies and Ryan Smith, who have both been really good. He potentially, when he's got his opportunities, hasn't kicked on as well. He's been quite unlucky with injuries. But yeah, I think from a Welsh rugby perspective, I'm surprised he's not been offered something better from one of the other regions, or the WRU haven't fought harder to keep him, because I think he probably is a player of national interest. And yeah, I mean, obviously I don't want to see him play for someone like Scarlets, but considering they have no second rows, the fact that, I don't know if they did put an offer on the table, but the fact there didn't seem to be any links there. Yeah, it's disappointing to see him leave Welsh rugby. But I do also think I think Grant's right. It'll probably be good for his career. Probably does a tough level of rugby, physical, uncompromising. So, I think it will hopefully really bring on his game.
Yeah. I think these rumors went around, didn't they, for a while, pre-season as well. So it would be interesting to find out what happened behind the scenes, so to speak. But yeah, as you said, I can't blame him at the moment for going and playing his trade in what is a good league and probably will improve him as a player. From one player going out to we've made a signing. I thought that Josh was going to line up as number 9 on the weekend, but Foley has come in from Leinster. I'm going to be honest, I don't know much about him. I think he played a bit in the 21-22 season. I don't know if any of you have got any knowledge of what he's like as a player.
None at all. I literally, been busy today, and I've just seen the news as we start on the call. So I don't know.
Yeah.
One thing I have noticed is people keep referencing he's a good young player, which makes me feel a bit better about my age, because he's 26. So for me, that's too old to be classed as a young player still. Anything above 25 for me should be established.
Josh, anyone older than you is old. Anyone younger than you is young, okay?
That's increasingly becoming everyone is younger than me in professional rugby, I think. But yeah, he hasn't played at all this season. I think he played, I had a quick look. It looked like he played four games or so in the URC for Leinster last season, all off the bench. And yeah, hasn't played this season. Scored a good try against Munster like 4 or 5 years ago, so probably just hasn't got the opportunity to kick on. But just training in an environment like Leinster, you can't be a bad player at all. So, and yeah, we're down to probably just Keelan as our only scrum half now. So, yeah, I think he'll be quite relieved.
It's disappointing that we haven't got the confidence to just say our SRC scrum halves can step up to the mark. But it's also good that we can actually put a short-term sort of measure in place and borrow someone from the likes of Leinster as well. So, yeah, I'm sort of disappointed that we're not seeing an SRC promotion at scrum half in particular, because there's probably plenty of young, confident, cocky scrum halves floating around the SRC, isn't it?
Oh, definitely, yeah. Like, because Scott Whitlock was sort of on the bench for a couple of games in Scotland and didn't get on, so he can't have been too far away.
Well, it's probably going to be one of them's going to be on the bench this weekend, and the other one playing probably. Yeah.
Do you reckon? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Disappointed for Harry Williams again, just because terrible timing with injuries, because he's probably been frustrated to be behind sort of Lukey Dye, Ruben Morgan Williams, and Kieran Hardy, and now he's sort of this is probably his opportunity, and he hasn't obviously not fit for it. Which is, got in.
Yeah.
So, shall we move on to the burning story of Welsh rugby, which is the continued fallout from the Y11 potential purchase of Cardiff? A lot has happened in a week. I can't remember what we covered last week, to be honest. Before we start with Grant's trip to Parliament and what we learned with that, awesome top, mate. I love that top.
I think it's just you two, this one. You put it on, you're thinking, do you know what? Okay, this feels like a real rugby jersey that I, generation when I used to play. You put it on, it's heavy.
Yeah, it should be heavy and loose.
Well, it used to be loose.
Yeah, well, the heavier I've got, the more I felt like I wish rugby kits were back in those, cotton trader,
Yeah.
massive collar,
Yeah.
hide the extra ballast, shall we say, that I have. But yeah. So this week, there's been a few things that have happened around the Y11 bid. Going through it all, and then we could discuss what we think, which is, Swansea Council have come out and, as far as I'm aware, have threatened legal action or are looking into legal action. We've got the players, old Ospreys players, and there's an extensive list coming out and saying the WR need to rethink their strategy. I don't know if anyone picked it up, but I was listening to the Sport in Wales podcast, and apparently the players walked out of that meeting, and some people at the club had known for over a month that Y11 had been interested in purchasing Cardiff. So we have a lot to discuss. Take it away, boys. Where do you want to start?
Right, I think you can start. The day we recorded, we weren't aware that the players had actually stopped their training session. Mark Jones had taken them to a room and they discussed what was going on with Lance Bradley and company. They were given the day off, weren't they, on the Wednesday then? Yeah, and the rumours on the Wednesday that the Ospreys had just walked out of a training session, which wasn't the case, was that the guys had stopped their training session to deal with the news. So that was Tuesday, the day we recorded. I think that's the news we probably missed. Wednesday then, Welsh Affairs Select Committee held their session talking about the future of Welsh rugby. So we had Richard Colley-Keyword and Abby Turney there for what should have been an hour. And in terms of with the breaks we had, with the division bell ringing for MPs to go and vote, that turned into about, 2.5 hours before representatives from the supporters club had their opportunity to answer some questions. It was really frustrating from a supporter's point of view. There were a lot of questions for the WRU. And because there was a lot of questions, there wasn't a lot of there were hardly any follow-up questions to the answers given. So, whereas we were sitting there in a row thinking, right, we can't say anything, because if you do say anything and interrupt a session like that, you get thrown out. So we did the right thing and sat there in silence and put up with some of the vague general answers coming out of the WRU. frustrating highlights for me. Finding out Richard Collier-Keywood works 1 day a week for the WRU. I wasn't aware of that. That was a bit of a shock in terms of his commitment. And obviously, he said he stepped up and filled in the gap with Harry Turney being off. But the fact that his regular job is just 1 day a week shocked me. Abby saying that the W had to step in when Cardiff backers were pulling out to save jobs. They couldn't face job losses, and we now look at the situation that the rest of the teams are looking at. Probably us all Scarlets, yeah, or definitely us all Scarlets. And the final, what was the final be in my bonnet? Well, that's a real straightforward question about to Richard Collier saying, "Do you think you've got the backing of the fans and the Welsh general public?" Yes, a straightforward yes. And for him to be so off the mark in terms of feelings, I'd like to think that by the end of the session, at least, we might have changed his mind. It was a really frustrating session to sit through. We sat there in silence, and then we had our opportunity to speak. And I think we came up with a united front. I don't think there was any "we are better than you were better than us, we should exist because of this, that, and the other." It was a fairly united front saying the WRU have put us in this mess. Make sure you don't make it any worse. And that was the general message that we tried to leave.
Yeah, I think, first of all, I do want to say, Grant, I think you did a superb job. I think you articulated yourself really well and represented the Ospreys fans really, really well. Just a quick question from me. Was it that the select affairs committee, they were the only people who were allowed to ask Abby Tierney and Richard Collier-Keywood questions? Because I would have quite liked to have a few questions from you to them. Was that never going to be the case?
That was never going to happen. Effectively, there's a panel of cross-party panel of MPs selected to ask questions. They're the only people asking questions, and they're only asking questions of the witnesses who were there at the time. So it should have been an hour with the WRU and half an hour with the supporters, and that run on till 3 hours or something in total with a few breaks. So no, we weren't allowed to ask questions. Like I said, if I had interrupted, you would have seen a big shepherd's crook coming in and pulling me off sideways. And the fact that I was sitting directly behind the pair of them, I was just massively unlucky in the fact that row right behind the witnesses, there's reserved bits of paper on the seats. So we all shuffled into the reserved seats, and just so happened I had the last one, and it just happened to be sitting directly behind the pair of them. So that's why my ugly mug was on telly. What looked like staring daggers at Abby Turney's head, and it was more the fact that I can't really do much here apart from she's sitting right in front of me. I'd rather look at her head and look at Richard Collier-Keywood's head, because I counted the hairs in his head in with 30 seconds and thought, what can I do now? So I carried on staring at Abby.
All I'm saying, Grant, is that you blinked once in 2.5 hours. That's not a normal amount.
That's been said to me several times, that,
Did you speak to either of them sort of outside of the room?
Yeah, we talked to Abby and Richard before the meeting, and we had 5 minutes with Abby when the session had finished as well. So one thing we raised with them was the leak that came out on Monday night in terms of Y11 with the preferred bidders. If you saw my comments from the session, which Torsten Bell's shared, if this had been announced on Monday, they would have planned to roll it all out to the right parties in the right order, and that didn't happen, and it caused chaos. So it said, there's a leak there are leaks going on, and wherever the leaks came from, the fact that a reporter's then taken up and shared that, he's put Welsh rugby in turmoil and chaos, and something should be done about that. So I did raise that with Abby before the session started in particular.
What was Abby's response to that?
Wales Online are owned by Reach. They talked to Reach before about things like this. I said, right, they may have talked to it before, but this has caused chaos again. There's one individual here in particular. It's got to be dealt with. That man should not be allowed to be putting these stories out and putting them in the press. So they said they'd pick it up again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oil my blood that did last week.
Yeah.
To me, the whole thing, like watching it, it just seemed there's so many contradictions from the fact that you wouldn't do your top button up and you'd wear a vest underneath your shirt, to, you know, the whole thing where they were saying, well, we'd have enough money to run 4 clubs. Like that was literally said, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Which is insane. The idea that, like, I personally don't believe that you can do the job of 2 people 1 day a week. Like that seems like an insane statement to me. Um, and yeah, like I just thought that there was an opportunity to ask questions, more questions than by the MPs than were actually asked. There was a lot of focus on like our funding and so on, but there wasn't much talk of, communication and if like how they were judging bids and if like proper like, you know, process had been followed on these things.
It felt like a
Um,
wasted opportunity.
yeah,
That it really did. But because the MPs were allocated, sorry, they'd had a brief, they'd had suggested questions, they added their own questions, and almost like those questions were fixed before the session started, and they knew they had to get through a fixed list of questions. So, they get a response, and because time was going on, they just move on to the next one, get a response. And there was very little opportunity for any follow-up questions. There was a couple, but it was, yeah, massive opportunity wasted, and they were far from grilled, in my opinion.
yeah. I think, yeah.
We appreciate the fact that the MPs have done it and brought it and highlighted all of this. It's really important. But there's there's a selection of MPs there who've got a thin knowledge on a lot of subjects, and it felt like that. Rather than the opportunity for supporters or representatives from supporters clubs and people in the know to ask some more probing questions.
Yeah.
But it made national news, and it? So
Yeah.
done the job.
Yeah. Particularly when MPs in Swansea are coming out and saying we're all being taken for a ride, you'd expect maybe a bit more forceful questioning. But yeah,
Yes.
there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think the other news that came out as well has been that there's been a release of a document by players who used to play for the Ospreys and lists and lists of players that if you were to make a dream team of, uh, they might win Europe. Um,
Yeah. I'm
and I
looking
think
at
that
it now. Yeah.
speaks volumes, really. I don't know what you made of the release, but yeah, I think it's a good sign that everybody is just saying like it's a bit ridiculous, you know. Even the likes of Sam Warburton have come out and said, actually, I used to think like the idea of cutting. This was a few weeks ago now, where he said that actually I think the keeping four is probably a better idea, or he's revised his position on it. So it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What is going on?
It's brilliant to have the players on board. I'm sure Josh will go through the details of some of the players, but we've got, I'm talking to Torsten Bell and Swansea Council on behalf of Osprey Supporters Club. So we're working with politicians. We've got contacts into the players, the ex-players who've put that message yesterday together. We're talking to someone a media company who are looking to run a sort of Save the Ospreys type campaign as well. So everybody is aligned around this, but we want to make sure this isn't just about let's save the Ospreys at the expense of someone else. Let's do us right and sort out. As the Ospreys players have said in their statement, let's not cut our phone nose to spite our face and look what Connor did by fighting being shut down and then opening up a new £40 million stand on the weekend.
Yeah.
Years down the line. So, Josh, what do you think about that players' announcement? Ex-players, sorry.
Yeah, first of all, I was just getting massive nostalgia by reading some of the names on the list. It was taking me back to the late noughties of following the Ospreys and having absolute superstars littered all over the team. But yeah, I think it's just a relief to have sort of a lot of people sort of fighting in the right direction. Sometimes I feel like as an individual, I'm obviously, devastated by what's going on, but I don't feel like I can do anything about it. But it does feel like there are groups of people who are sort of fighting against this and not just letting, Richard Collier, Keyword, Abby Tierney just have their way. There's still work to be done. And and there's no point fighting once it's all finished, all decided, and all signed on the dotted line. Now is the time to fight for your team, and I think there are a lot of people putting a lot of resource and a lot of energy into this, which is, yeah, it's all we can do really. It's exciting. Yeah, and there was some surprising missions like Alwyn Jones as well. He also put out a statement which I think surprised a lot of people. So yeah, there's some it's almost just legends of Welsh rugby. There's a lot of Grand Slams in that list, and it kind of does make you realise without the Ospreys, I don't think Wales would have had the success they've had over the last 20 years, without a shadow of a doubt. Every single Grand Slam team has been underpinned by a group of Ospreys.
Well, I started collecting the names in like dragging them out to the stories in various other places. Okay, and I honestly now I wish I'd done what you said and you could rearrange them into like world beating sides, right? So, but Shane, Kai Griffiths, Ryan Jones, Sean Holly, Henson, Hook, Ian Goff, Arcee, Hibbard, Tommy Bowe, Barry Williams, James King, Tom Smith, Peter Owen, ex-media manager of the Ospreys, Jonathan Spratt, Alan Wynne, Barry Davis, Sonny Toy Parker, Rhys Webb, Josh Matavesi, Ben John, Lee Burns, Sam Davis. And that's the list I'd collected up until I spent the last 8 hours doing a little bit of work. So, I know that's expanded since then. So it's, there's 23 players or 23 ex-Ospreys in that list. And I know there's been more coming out since then. So it's fantastic to have the backing of the players, and we know these ex-players are saying, right, what else can we do? So we're trying to coordinate with them to see what how we can maximize driving this message home, saying the WRU are about to do the wrong thing. We need to stop this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You read that list, don't you? And it just kind of hits home all the players that have come through, all the talent, all the, those, you say the names and it takes me back, and it almost makes me slightly emotional to think that all that apparently, according to some people, doesn't matter. Um, and yeah, to have their support and for them to be talking about it, it's a big thing. I really think it's a powerful statement. Um, and all we can do is keep kind of going, get to the games. And I think it's been said in other podcasts as well of this parish is get to the games. If you can't get to an Ospreys game, get to a Dragons game. If you can't get to a Dragons game, get to a Cardiff game. It's time for us all to get together and just say, hey, look, like we're all fans of the game and we all agree. I think most fans agree that change is needed, but this isn't the change that's needed. This isn't, and it doesn't make much sense considering what's come out over the last week or so. Yeah,
100%. Shane was talking when he was commenting on the Cardiff game, wasn't he, about he's working with Glenhammond School now, is it? No. And he's trying to get in contact with the W to talk to them, and they're not getting any responses. And you're thinking, this should be starting with schools rugby and community rugby and working your way up, isn't it? Not starting at the top and just slashing a team, which is the WRU's approach, is just miles off the mark.
exactly.
It just feels like they're going for the easiest option in terms of cutting the Ospreys instead of actually looking at what can be done. And I think there's been a lot of comparisons to Connacht as well this week, who I think the RFU were looking to cut 20 odd years ago. And people stood up, people spoke against it, and they obviously didn't end up being cut. They became a feeder team, and then 15 years later, they ended up winning the Pro 12 at the time, I think. So, yeah, I think just because we're going for a tough period financially, don't do an sort of irreparable decision of cutting a team is sort of my opinion on it. Teams, countries go through peaks and troughs financially and on the field. And if you were to get rid of the Ospreys, that's not something that can come back. That's a permanent change.
Us and Scarlett both fall out of our current PRAs at the same time. Everyone's assuming it's going to be Ospreys going because of the Y11 bid, effectively, and one company with two clubs. But Scarlett might be in a precarious position. 2 years down the line, if the WRU have their way, will they then go, all right, then we've gone to 3, we go to 2 now? And everyone was up in arms when we initially said 2, and it's almost like, oh, they might settle for 3. But potentially, okay, 2 years down the line, who's to say that Dragons or Cardiff Rugby are not going to be in the same boat in terms of one of them facing all this again? If the W carry on what seems like a stupid path to be going down.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And also, yeah, the fact these decisions are being made by Rich Collier-Keywood, who is openly admitted to working 1 day a week, and amongst other people who have potentially only been in the job less than 6 months. For a lot of jobs, they'd still be in their sort of probationary period. So they're making major decisions about Welsh rugby, having only experienced Welsh rugby for 4 months, and suddenly decided, this is the route we need to go down. I find that concerning, because they can potentially go forward, cut a region. It might improve the rugby in the short term, move on to their next project and call it a success. They're not interested, I wouldn't say, in the long term health of Welsh rugby.
I'm sure they say they would.
Yeah, I'm sure they would.
It makes you wonder why the threat of him walking away from the job if Y11 don't win the preferred bidder was a threat at all if he's working 1 day a week.
It's
like, all right, mate.
I think the original source of that story, when that story came out, okay, that's been withdrawn. So
has it?
Yes, so that's allegedly.
Allegedly.
But if your independent chair allegedly said that, okay, well, sorry, actually did say that, then he's not very independent, is he?
No.
Yeah. And him saying as well, he attends 1 local Welsh rugby game a month is his aim. I feel like we need to do an audit check on that. So any local clubs where you've seen Richard Collier-Keywood, just let us know and we'll start counting them up, because he's been in the job 2 years. So, we can work it out, about 24 clubs. So yeah, let us know. Because I feel like you've seen that guy on Instagram who sort of like fact checks people. It's like, yeah, right.
Oh, HMRC, whatever. It's football players, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, as soon as you said that, I was like, you are absolutely not going to 1 game a month. I'm not buying that for a second.
Yeah, but he only works 1 day a week. He's got other commitments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Richard.
Anyway, I'm sure we could talk about this for a long, long time. But there was some rugby played on Friday night in what looked like disastrous conditions. Were you there, Grant?
Yeah, I was there. I got there literally just in time for kickoff as the players were out, because I had a meeting with some politicians beforehand obviously to talk about rugby again. So we walked in as the Lions ran out, and I thought, ooh, weather's looking a little bit rough, and it got worse and worse and worse. So when Dan Casendi scored that try in the corner, we just went, well, we're not going to convert this, okay? I doubt if anyone can kick the ball that far, but straight into the wind, coming diagonally across the pitch. Conditions were shocking. And you would have thought it would have suited us more than the Lions. But the Lions spent a good, I don't know how long the second half ran for in terms of if you just run a clock against it, but they were dropping like flies every time there was a breakdown, and getting their breath back, I think. Yeah. Shit conditions. Shit.
Yes. What did you make of the game, Josh? What did you think?
Yeah, I thought, there were a few sort of key moments. I thought conceding just for half time was probably a big turning point, because I did think it was probably a 10-point wind, and that got them within the sort of 10-point block. So I thought, they're within a try with the win second half. We're going to be up against it here. I thought that was a bit of a killer. I thought, there was a penalty call close to the end where I think Mark Jones spoke afterwards and said we're potentially a bit unlucky, but I do also think Delwey was quite lucky not to be red carded for his tackle. I thought that could have easily been. We've seen that given as red card before. And Reece Davis was also quite lucky they didn't have a better camera angle of his clear out, because I also thought that was a little bit of a cheap shot potentially.
I thought he was unlucky there because I thought that, the referee hadn't blown his whistle yet. And so he just kind of got stuck in. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't want to sound like one of these people who's like, oh, the game's gone soft. But I was like, do you know what? If you're gonna get in a ruck, like
I'm probably
maybe the
looking at it.
Derry one though.
Yeah, fair. Like I'm probably looking at it as a fly off if I was standing on the side of a moor and I got levelled by a second row. I wouldn't be best pleased. I'd probably be kicking up a bit of a fuss.
I just go off quietly and just go, I'm sorry I got in your way.
Yeah, exactly.
The dairy thing for me, okay, we've seen so many of them turn it from yellows into reds, but I've got a real issue with the fact that when players drop themselves going into tackles, it just all of a sudden it should almost be like, well, if you're going to lower your head below your own shoulders, okay, all of a sudden it's free game because people are like going into each other. It's almost impossible for someone tackling someone head on to do anything apart from make head contact. Very often, the lower the opposition goes, the harder it is to actually tackle them. It shouldn't be illegal to tackle someone coming at you, running at your chest.
I,
Yeah, that point.
I can't remember who the commentators were. I think it might have been. I know it was Gareth Owen, but I can't remember who the co-coms was. But I'm sure he said like, oh, it was Ellis Jenkins, and I'm sure Ellis Jenkins said at the time, we need to make the game safer, yes, but there's some you can only make it so safe. Uh, as someone who studied physiotherapy and worked in the field a little bit, I have a little bit of a different view on it, which is like I think that I know people are dropping their height, but and I was like, well, what's he supposed to do? Maybe just, and I know this is going to be like, what are you talking about? Maybe just don't make the tackle. You know, I don't like to see head contact, and I know there needs to be a balance taken, and we could talk about this for ages, but I did think Dowie was lucky to get away with that with a yellow. I thought he was quite high in that tackle himself as well. But yeah,
Just make it illegal for people to drop their heads too far. There we are.
yeah. But then are we not in danger of turning it into rugby league then, where everyone's just running upright?
Well, they clothesline each other as well, so no less
But
off.
yeah, there is that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've probably lent into it, haven't they, in rugby league? They're just like, yeah, that's what we do. Anyway, I digress.
I think a draw was a fair result. It is massively frustrating. We couldn't get over the line. We had so many opportunities to do so, and yeah, the fact that he could have gone the other way in the very last play of the game, gone from a drop goal, miss one end to them, not grounding the ball the other end. I thought, what an end to a game for a bit of excitement in absolutely atrocious conditions. So fair play to both sides for trying to play a bit of rugby.
Oh yeah. I know, Grant, you said that, struggling kicking in those conditions, but I know one man who his cultured left peg came out a couple of times, and Deavesy put in some lovely nudges down the down the touchline.
Well, you realise, okay, yeah, in that first half, okay, yeah, we had some distance on our kicks to me. So he said, all you got to do is just smack it up in the air. Like you said, Deavesy realised that, and he's like, you can't go wrong there. But when the Lions took a drop out in the second half, it's going, oh my God, it's gone all the way over there. Yeah, but yeah, Deavesy added to his repertoire with a delicate left peg smacking the ball 60 yards.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought on top of that, I think a couple of players who really played well for me were Yassin Hopkins at fullback. I thought to play fullback in those conditions is next to impossible.
Yeah.
So I thought he did superbly well under those conditions, and he's probably going to get another go at 15 if Walsh is going to play 10 this week. And the other one was Ryan Smith. I think after Richard Collyer-Keywood's
Waste of
message that
money.
all foreign players are a waste of money, I think he very much proved that he is not a waste of money, and he's been a brilliant signing for us. So yeah, those are probably two standouts for me.
I thought Morgan Morse did a good job when he came on as well. Again, he carries well, doesn't he? And he did a good job off the base of the scrum and around the pitch again. So deserved his try.
We got such strength and depth in that back row, and in the second row, Ryan Smith. There's certain players now in that team you just expect like an 8 out of 10 every week. it's Deepsy, Morris and Morse, doesn't matter who it is. Ryan Smith as well. Like, I really want to highlight Ryan Smith is like the evidence that Richard Collier doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Like, he's so good, and he's coming over from a different environment. He's bringing probably different knowledge, and he's bringing players on. Like, to say that that is a waste of money when he's there, he's going to be there every week playing like that. It's just a ridiculous statement. Not only is it a ridiculous statement, imagine how like Ryan Smith feels hearing that. Like imagine if it was you and you were just there doing your job and the person running the game in the union said, waste of money this lot. Like
Yeah,
Jack Walsh as well as another one. It's just tone deaf and ridiculous.
that guy's just this season has just arrived in the Ospreys fresh, isn't he?
Yeah.
Making a massive difference. Oh, he's had a massive impact. And Collie Keyword says he shouldn't be here. He's wasting money. And then, oh, by the way, yeah, it looks like your team might be going as well.
Yeah.
Focus.
Imagine the sort of things he's teaching James Fender and Reece Davis. He's passing on knowledge all the time, and they've got a good role model to learn off every week.
Yeah.
In the same way that Lee Halfpenny, I'm sure, learned from Ben Blair. I'm sure Tipperick learned a lot from Holler. I'm sure Mike Phillips and Reece Webb learned a lot from Justin Marshall and Fotuaili. You know, they're
Jamie Brown.
yeah, exactly.
And he's under our Lord Saviour, Justin Tipperick.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, to say they don't bring anything to Welsh rugby, I think is a really stupid statement, to be honest.
Yeah, you've got to have role models, haven't you? And if you've got someone who can make that much of a difference, it's one thing and they're filling in gaps in your team where you, with like someone who will do a job for you. It's another thing bringing over someone who's that good and he's outstanding.
Yeah, he's been a great replacement for Adam Beard. I did think it was going to be difficult to replace him, but I think he's more than stepped up to the task.
Yeah. I like what he did with his scrum half in particular.
Yeah.
Put you down over there.
I feel like we should cover it. I feel like we should cover the penalties at the end. And the kick in. And fair play to Dan Edwards for actually stepping up and taking responsibility and going for it. It would have been easy just saying gonna kick. I was surprised that they didn't go for the line out, to be fair. I thought that given the conditions. But yeah, fair play. And I enjoyed watching the interaction with the referee when he was like, oh, 7 yards beyond this, and he walked him back about 15.
Yeah.
He's looking at him going, you said 7 yards, ref. He's like, you said 7 yards. Like, I don't think it's 7 yards.
Yeah, show me exactly who the point is first, okay, and then I'll decide what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you though. I think I'm more happy that he did actually step up, as you say, Jack, because I think in professional rugby you can be so focused on outcome that you forget the process. Now, for me, when I was watching it, I was very much shouting the screen, "Go for the points, get the points." We've tried to run it in a few times now. Let's try and take the points. I know it's a tough, windy day, but just give it your best shot. And similar with the drop goal, I know it didn't end up being too close, but I do actually think the process of taking the drop goal wasn't actually a bad one. So yeah, sometimes that happens.
He was a long way back trying it, but yeah, it was an opportunity to win the game just like that, wasn't it? And we battered their line and had little success. I know we scored 4 tries, but they had a tough defensive performance off them.
Yeah. And I don't like to be critical of Mark Jones, but from watching on TV, I did think he potentially got the timing of the substitutions wrong, in my opinion. I did think looking at Steph Thomas, he looked out on his feet. He looked absolutely gone. And I did think we brought on Cam Jones and some of the other front row replacements quite late. I think it was like 70 plus minutes. And I was thinking he was out on his feet for 15 minutes before that. That's just me. I know he's got access to GPS and all these different things, so I could be miles off, and he could just be an Alan Wynne where he looks tired for about 65, 70 minutes and he's actually got loads in the tank. But yeah, that was just an observation from the outside. I do think he could have made his forwards changes a little bit earlier.
Yeah, he's cautious, isn't he, because he had quite an inexperienced pair of props, so I don't know much of us protecting them and not exposing ourselves to potentially penalties. it's hard decision. It's hard, but yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
Steph Thomas had a good game, I thought as well.
Mm.
He's stepping up in terms of his personal performances anyway.
Yeah, he's putting it about. I think he's one of the top tacklers we had on the night. So yeah, he's one of the top carriers, really putting it about. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that I noted down, and it's something I've been
Mm.
wondering because it's been an ongoing theme this season. I was just wondering, Dewi's darts.
That could be a show, that could.
Yeah, it could be. Do we
Well,
think referees are watching it more closely now because of the change in rules in terms of if they jump, if they don't jump? So they're actually just watching a lot closer. Because I don't think a game goes by now where it's not called for like not straight. I don't know if, yeah, I don't know what you make of it, but
it's not his strongest point as a starting point, is it?
yeah,
Carrying and his defence are his strong points. His scrummaging is a strong point. His line out is the one thing where there's room for improvement.
yeah,
And Lewis Lloyd comes on and he hits the mark regularly.
yeah,
Yeah. I do think as well, it could be a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy a little bit. Because as you say, because other teams know that his darts aren't his strongest part of his game, they get up and compete more, which then puts our line under more pressure, which means he
Got
might skew them slightly towards our side, which then means we're under even more pressure at the next line out, and then more likely to compete because they know the darts can be slightly astray.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's it's worrying for the Six Nations a little bit, depending if they go Adam Beard and what the options are. But yeah, I think his darts did get better for a period though. I remember when he first broke into the team, I was like, oh my god, we're not going to win a line out today. But now it got to a point where I was like, okay, yeah, his darts are actually okay now. But I do think this season they have potentially dropped off a little bit.
Yeah. I think he's so good in the loose as well, like getting down to like throwing, like it must take it out of him, and that can't help either, when you're getting tired. But it's just something I've noted in the last few games is that referees seem to be watching a lot closer. But as you said, it could be the cyclical thing as well, which is like teams have identified it as a weak point, and so they always challenge, and so that puts more pressure on it, and you end up in this thing. So but yeah, certainly room for improvement, I would say.
I think you make a really good point about him, the amount of work he gets through on the field and that having an impact because you're kind of going through high physical load straight into a very closed skill,
Yeah,
and that must be so difficult because yeah, he's nearly always towards the top of our tackling charts, and most hookers aren't that
yeah,
good around the field.
yeah,
So I think that's a good point.
absolutely. Anything else on the game? Anything else anybody noticed? I I think that the one thing I noticed is the heart that the players put in, given the week that they'd had, the effort that they put in. Very, very clear they are still up for this fight, and they're still there, and they're still putting their bodies on the line for the club and for the fans and so on. And that was fantastic to see, I think, the fight at the end.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, off fair play. Yeah, the players stood up and being on the terraces. I was talking to Charles Richardson, who writes for the Telegraph. I was supposed to meet him before the game, but I was tied up elsewhere. So we talked to other members of the supporters club. But he just happened to come and wander onto the terrace and stood right next to me. And as I introduced myself, and he said, "Is it normally this loud here?" I said, "No, not really. Okay, people are wound up." He said, "This is louder than the shed." He said, "I should have been in Gloucester tonight. Okay, this is louder than the shed. This is like." No, I said people are angry, people are upset, and I was talking to a mate who was standing next to me. He said, "Normally when I start chanting Ospreys, okay, I'm singing on my own. Every time I started tonight, everybody went up." So yeah, I think well done to the crowd. Okay, we got to show these boys of sports. If you are going to the game, yeah, make some noise. Don't be afraid. Shout your head off.
and the lighting up the phones on 11 minutes as well. It was brilliant. Great to see.
Quite a little proud moment when you're seeing everyone joining in, and I'm standing on the terrace looking back to the main stand. And the main stand lit up as well. I know cameras are showing the terraces, but yeah, fair play to everyone. You know, we're not aiming this at YLN. We're aiming this at the WRU, saying we're watching. We're watching these processes. Don't think you can do whatever you want.
All right. So I believe there are some community results to go through. Grant has been collecting them because it's been a big week of cup games and league games, so they're all scattered. So if anyone's been left out, we apologize. But
Right. Can you see my screen?
I can see your screen, yes.
Right. Look, yeah. Thanks, Jack. You get my excuses in. There's a mixture of cup games and league games, which meant there's results everywhere. So I've missed. I've got all of the cup results. I've got some. I've only got a handful of the league games. So starting with the Premiership Cup semi-finals, Llanelli Wanderers 12, Neath 25. So Neath move on to the final there. Great result. Championship West in the league, Bonamine 26, Kenfield 10, Gowton 21, Dunvant 27. And moving on to the Championship Cup. So you've got league games and cup games in the same league going on the same weekend. Bridgend Athletic with a great win, winning 17-6 away at Newcastle Emlyn. Moving on to League One Cup quarter-finals, Aberafon Green Stars sneaking a win, well-deserved 16-13 against Penarth. League Two Cup quarter-finals, Aberafon Quins 15, Llantwit Vardra 0. League Three Cup quarter-finals, Tornmouth 3, Resolve 12. League Four Cup quarter-finals, Tenby Athletic 0, Bonamine Athletic 24. Great away result for Bonamine there. And League 5 Cup quarter-finals, Dunvant Athletic 9, Banwyn 3, and Kenfield Athletic 5, Brecon Athletic 35. Like I said, I've missed out some of the league results. Apologies if you're relying on me to get them tonight.
Some good wins there. Go the Green Stars. So we've got the small issue of a Welsh derby coming up. Now we know that there is going to be a scrum half available. Uh, how are we feeling about that? Because obviously a lot of the Wales boys aren't going to be there because they're going to be in camp. So what do we think?
It's going to be a tough outing. It's going to be a tough outing mentally for those boys. It's going to be tough playing against another Welsh team, and it's going to be tough in particular because fair play to the Dragons, they've hit a seam of form. They were unlucky on the weekend, so we've got a challenge on our hands. So I think it's up to the players will do their damnedest, whatever team we can manage to put out, and like to think the crowd can do their damnedest as well to support. It's gonna be a real challenge, and if you start looking around at what team can we get on the pitch, we're untouched in certain areas, and other areas it's like, okay, this will be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what the bench looks like as well.
Yeah. I think this is the point where you can highlight that the money that the Ospreys receive from the WRU is specifically because they've trained these players, they've, paid these players wages, and now they're going to play for Wales. And this is precisely why the money is given to the teams. They're not running the clubs.
It's not funding; it's payment for
The
services.
services, exactly. I think it's important to highlight that. And yeah, I agree. It's going to be a tough game, isn't it? The Dragons haven't lost many players either, have
No,
they? They lost two, two,
two.
is it? Two.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
we'll come back to the balance of the Welsh squad maybe.
two.
Yeah,
And it's hard, yeah, with so many players missing. It can be. This is where I think that actually, like, you can see the recruitment policy being really good. So all these like kind of players from overseas are a waste of money, like your Cockney-Singers, your Boshoffs, your Ryan Smiths, um, are going to be there, and I think they'll play.
thank God.
Um, and then yeah, it's going to be a difficult game, particularly with the Dragons team that seem to actually play a pretty good rugby at the moment. Yeah, they had a similar issue with the wind on the weekend, didn't they? Out in Limerick, Cork, Limerick.
Yeah,
That's the one, Limerick. I know what I'm talking about. And so yeah, I think it's going to be a difficult game. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I must admit on Friday, I basically tried to like quadruple screen it. So I had Ospreys, I had Dragons, I had Gloucester, And then I had the Traitors on the telly because my missus wanted to watch Traitors, and I did as well. It was Traitors final. So I was like, oh my God, I don't even know what to take in here. But I did have main focus on Ospreys, I promise. It was main focus on Ospreys. But I did think Dragons are really unlucky at the weekend not to win against Munster. I think I've been really, really pleased, to be honest, because so many years in a row now we've seen their recruitment and we've kind of been like, oh, they've recruited well and then they've underperformed, recruited well, underperformed. It feels like they've finally reached a point where I think their recruitment's actually been in the areas where they needed strong players and strong recruitment. And I think, yeah, their performances on the pitch have sort of shown that. I think, yeah, they're obviously not missing many to the Welsh squad. I think my biggest area of concern for us is potentially our front row. We're not actually missing many to the Welsh other than obviously Lake. But I don't know who's fit. And I think that's their biggest area of where they've improved on from last season. I think Rob Hunt has been absolutely superb for them. They've got a litany of really strong hookers. And then their options at loose head with Martinez, who's a very good Argentinian loose head, and also Wyn Jones, who's obviously a British Lion. And then they've got a new South African tight head. So their four props are very strong, and there's no real drop off. Similarly, I think Levi Douglas adds a lot of bulk into their second row. I think Ben Carter will be a big loss for them. I think he's potentially in for a starting spot for Wales. I've been so impressed with him every time I've watched him play this season. So yeah, I think we'll be up against it. But then at the same time, you kind of look at where we're missing players and you go, right, okay, I don't know what can be selected in the front row, but let's just assume Lewis Lloyd a hooker. You've still got Rhys Davis and Ryan Smith in the second row, very strong. You've got a back row of Moriarty, Morse, Morris, maybe DeVitt. So those are very strong back rowers. Not even forgetting Ratty as well.
Yeah. Oh, massively undervalued. Yeah, Ratty. Yeah.
Oh, massively, yeah. Obviously, half-backs concern missing on both scrum halves, but we've got this new lad in from Leinster. Hopefully, get an opportunity for someone from the SRC. You know, Jack Walsh has been superb. And then you go Phil and Kieran Williams in the centre. That's pretty strong.
Or Bosch off as well. It's great, isn't it? You know, the two centres have carried us up until Owen Watkin came back, haven't they?
Oh, big time, yeah. Like we obviously, yeah, we're losing, as you say, we're losing Owen now, but we haven't had him all for about 9 months. So, you know, we're pretty used to not having him. And I think Phil brings something a bit different anyway, which, you know, hopefully if the weather stays okay, you know, we'll get to see a bit more of that. And yeah, then you look back through, you've got Cassande, you've got Hopkins who played really well, still got Keelan. So I'm going in with optimism. I think it's going to be tough. I think it'll be really, really tough. I think it'll be a cracking atmosphere with everything going on. I think the Dragons have been, for what I've seen, the Dragons fans have been really supportive of everything that's going on with us in Y11. And yeah, I'm just hoping for a really good competitive Welsh derby.
Yeah, it'll be nice to see some fans. I know that Dragons official supporters club are bringing a bus up, or if not a couple of buses, I'm not sure. So it'd be great to welcome them aboard at the Brewery Field. Hoping they're going to join in. We call in a rally at 6:15 before the game, where we're hoping to make our voices heard. And so anyone coming along, okay, there's a massive JPR mural at the ground. Okay, yeah, you'll find us. If you can't find us, you'll definitely hear us there before the game as well. Hoping some of the ex-players might join us as well. So, and we're hoping a few Dragons boys will come along and support the cause. Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing my pals from the supporters club and our pals from Dragons Lair as well.
Brilliant. Yeah. So it's that time of the evening again. Predictions
I'm confident.
and something funny,
Oh,
yeah, given the current mood around Welsh rugby, something funny might be hard to come up with. So what are you saying, Grant? What's the score going to be?
Ospreys by 1.
Ospreys by 1. Anything funny can you think of?
Oh, maybe the WRU's top 3 turn up the game. That'll be quite funny.
Oh, fair enough. What about you, Josh?
Yeah, I'm going to go Ospreys by 3. And I'm going to go with Jamie from the Dragons Lair to have one too many. And yeah, we're going to see him invade the pitch at some stage.
I think I'm gonna go Ospreys by 15, and Nick's gonna be escorted out of the nice seats he's got because he's going to be shouting expletives at Lance Bradley before the game. Uh, anyway, if you have enjoyed listening to us, please give us a follow, share the pod, more so than ever now. It's really important that we get this content out there and people hear us speaking. So please give us a like and a follow. Um, I hope you've all enjoyed my hosting. And thanks to Grant and Josh for their insight. Have a great week, everybody. And yeah, see you next week.
Yeah.